For decades, the story was simple. Indians moved to America in search of the so-called American dream. Better jobs, higher pay, and the promise of a new life. But now, in a twist nobody expected, the flow of people is starting to reverse. More and more Americans are packing up their lives and moving to India. And this isn't just a handful of digital nomads or yoga seekers. We're talking about thousands of applications for long-stay visas, entire expat communities forming in cities like Bangalore, Goa, and Delhi, and countless anecdotal reports of US retirees, remote workers, and even entrepreneurs setting up shop in India. Some analysts estimate that in the coming decade, the number of Americans relocating to India could reach into the millions. So what's going on here? Why would people leave one of the wealthiest countries in the world to chase opportunity, affordability, or even peace of mind in a country they once saw as the land of call centers and outsourcing? Today, we are going to break it down, the push factors driving Americans out of the US, the pull factors making India so attractive, and what this global migration shift really means. The historical irony for most of modern history, migration between India and the United States has been a one-way street. Beginning in the 1960s, after the US reformed its immigration laws, waves of highly educated Indians, engineers, doctors, scientists began flocking to America. They filled critical labor shortages, especially in medicine, technology, and research. The stereotype became so well known that it was almost a cliché: Indians chasing the American dream. You studied hard, got into the lits, maybe cracked the GRE, and if you were lucky, you ended up in Silicon Valley or at an Ivy League school. From there, you built a comfortable life, maybe even sent money back home. This migration shaped how India was seen abroad. India was the exporter of brains, the supplier of tech talent, the country where call centers and back-office operations thrived. The US was the destination, the aspirational endpoint. But now, in the 2020s, that story is beginning to flip. More and more Americans are chasing what could be called the Indian dream. Instead of India being defined as the outsourcing hub, it is being rebranded as a lifestyle destination, a place where Westerners go not only to work remotely, but to live better, stretch their dollar further, and, in many cases, rediscover meaning. This reversal is more than a quirky migration trend. It's symbolic. It represents a global power shift, a sign that India is no longer just a place people leave, but a place people arrive at. The irony is striking. The same country once stereotyped as sending its best and brightest to America is now becoming a magnet for the very citizens of that superpower. Economic pressures, one of the biggest forces pushing Americans abroad, is the crushing cost of living. Housing prices in major US cities like San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles have spiraled to the point where even upper-middle-class families feel squeezed. Healthcare, a basic human need, is notoriously expensive. Thousands of dollars a year, even with insurance. Add in the skyrocketing cost of college education and student debt, and many families find themselves stuck in a cycle of financial stress. By contrast, India offers a strikingly different equation. A US dollar stretches far further in India. Rent for a spacious apartment in Bangalore or Hyderabad might cost less than a cramped studio in Los Angeles. High-quality healthcare, especially in private hospitals, can be accessed at a fraction of US prices. Even everyday services, transportation, food, childcare are far more affordable. For Americans drowning in debt or unable to maintain their lifestyle at home, India suddenly looks like an oasis of financial relief. Beyond economics, America's social fabric has been under strain. Polarization between left and right has reached levels not seen in decades, with culture wars raging over everything from education to gender to free speech. Racial tensions continue to flare, and many citizens feel increasingly alienated from their political system. For a portion of the population, the US no longer feels like a stable or welcoming environment. Some Americans are drawn to India precisely because it offers a different atmosphere. While India has its own political complexities, many expats describe it as less politically suffocating than the hyperpolarized climate back home. There's also the allure of being able to step outside of America's endless culture wars and live in a society where personal identity is not constantly under debate. For those weary of division, India provides not just a change in scenery but a mental escape. The COVID-19 pandemic changed how the world works, perhaps permanently. Millions of jobs that were once tied to physical offices are now fully remote. This has unlocked unprecedented freedom for workers, who suddenly realized they didn't have to live in New York or San Francisco to keep their job. They could, in theory, live anywhere with decent Wi-Fi. Digital nomads quickly seized this opportunity, and India has emerged as an attractive option. Its major cities boast a growing network of co-working spaces, reliable internet infrastructure, and international communities of freelancers and entrepreneurs. Combine that with affordability, vibrant culture, and endless travel opportunities, and India becomes a prime destination for the new remote workforce. Finally, perhaps the most profound push factor is the decline of belief in the American dream itself. For decades, the promise was simple: work hard, and you could own a home, raise a family, and live comfortably. But for millennials and Gen Z, that dream feels increasingly out of reach. Home ownership rates have plummeted, wages have stagnated compared to inflation, and many feel like they are running just to stand still. Retirees, too, are beginning to question whether they can sustain their lifestyles in the US on fixed incomes. For them, India offers not only affordability but dignity, the ability to live comfortably without sacrificing quality of life. In other words, the very dream that once pulled Indians toward America is now pushing Americans away, toward India. One of the most obvious attractions for Americans relocating to India is the massive cost of living gap. In San Francisco or New York, renting even a modest apartment can cost several $1,000s a month. In contrast, the same budget in Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Pune could secure a modern, fully furnished flat in a prime location, with money left over. For retirees or middle-class families, this difference is life-changing. And it goes beyond housing. Everyday services like housekeeping, childcare, and even drivers, considered luxuries in the United States, are affordable and accessible in India. Healthcare is another major draw. A medical procedure that might cost tens of thousands of dollars in the US could be done for a fraction of that price in India, often with world-class doctors and hospitals. For Americans, the idea of living well without financial stress is a powerful incentive, and India delivers that in ways the US no longer does. Another factor pulling Americans in is India's economic momentum. India is now the world's fastest-growing major economy, with its GDP growth consistently outpacing that of the United States and China. The country's tech sector is booming, with Bengaluru often called the Silicon Valley of the East. Startups are thriving, venture capital is pouring in, and opportunities abound not just for Indians but also for foreigners who bring expertise and global connections. For entrepreneurs, consultants, and investors, India feels like the new frontier. And with a rapidly rising middle class, the quality of life for urban residents is improving dramatically. Upscale restaurants, luxury malls, international schools, and reliable infrastructure in major cities mean that expats don't have to sacrifice modern comforts to enjoy India's advantages. But economics isn't the whole story. India has long been a magnet for Western spiritual seekers. Since the 1960s, when the Beatles famously traveled to Rishikesh to learn meditation, yoga and Indian philosophy have captivated American imaginations. Today, that attraction has only grown stronger. Wellness tourism, yoga teacher trainings, Ayurveda retreats, and meditation centers draw thousands of Americans every year, not just as tourists, but as long-term residents. For many, India is seen as a place to reset the soul, a place where life is less about chasing money and more about finding balance. Whether it's than in the past. Certain Indian states are even actively encouraging foreign professionals to join their tech ecosystems, offering smoother entry for those who bring specialized skills. For American entrepreneurs and investors, India's relatively flexible business entry options make it easier to set up shop compared to other large markets. Add to that the option of renewable long-term visas, and India suddenly looks like a practical choice for relocation. Finally, Americans aren't moving to India in isolation. They're moving into already established expat communities. In Goa, entire neighborhoods are filled with foreigners living the coastal lifestyle. Bangalore has become a hotspot for tech expats and digital nomads, with international co-working spaces and thriving nightlife. Rishikesh attracts long-term yoga practitioners, while Pondicherry, with its French colonial charm, has become a favorite for retirees and artists. These communities provide not just practical support, like international schools and expat-friendly healthcare, but also social reassurance. For many Americans, knowing that others have already made the leap makes the decision much easier. One of the largest groups relocating to India are retirees. Fixed-income retirees in the US often find themselves priced out of a comfortable lifestyle, especially when healthcare and housing costs eat up the bulk of their savings. In India, their pensions or social security checks stretch much further. Instead of downsizing, they can afford larger homes, personal care, and a higher quality of life. For many, this isn't just relocation, it's a chance to live their golden years with dignity and comfort. Another major category is digital nomads, freelancers, tech workers, designers, YouTubers, and remote employees. Many of them were part of the wave that started post-COVID, when offices shut down and remote work became mainstream. While Southeast Asia has long been a digital nomad hub, India is now competing strongly, offering cheaper living costs than Bali or Thailand, combined with rich culture and endless travel opportunities. Cities like Bangalore and Hyderabad offer strong internet infrastructure, while smaller towns provide peace and creative inspiration. Then there are the spiritual seekers. These are Americans who arrive in India initially for retreats, yoga teacher trainings, or pilgrimages, and decide not to leave. They settle in towns like Rishikesh, Dharamshala, or Auroville, sometimes opening wellness centers or working in NGOs. For them, India represents more than a place to live. It represents a way of life rooted in spirituality, community, and simplicity. India is also drawing ambitious professionals and entrepreneurs from the US. Some are attracted to India's booming startup ecosystem, while others find opportunities in education, healthcare, or NGOs. American professors are joining Indian universities, while entrepreneurs are setting up companies to serve India's rapidly growing consumer market. India, once known primarily as the back office of the world, is increasingly seen as the front line of innovation. And finally, we have the reverse migrants, Indian Americans returning home with their US-born children. For them, moving to India is a chance to reconnect with their roots, enjoy extended family networks, and offer their children a bilingual, bicultural upbringing. These families often blend American efficiency with Indian tradition, embodying the global shift in migration. Meet John and Linda, a retired couple from Florida. Back in the US, their monthly pension barely covered rent, health insurance, and groceries. In Kerala, their same income provides them with a spacious home, surrounded by palm trees, affordable medical checkups, and even a housekeeper who cooks traditional meals. They often say that in the US they were just surviving, but in India they are truly living. Then there's Ryan, a software consultant from Seattle. In the US, his rent for a one-bedroom apartment was $2,200 a month, before utilities. In Bangalore, for half that amount, he rents a two-bedroom flat in a modern complex, complete with gym access and a co-working space nearby. "I'm not just saving money," he says, "I'm saving my sanity. The lifestyle here feels less stressful, and I can actually afford to enjoy life." Take Priya, an Indian-American engineer who left her job at a big tech firm in Silicon Valley. She returned to India to launch her own startup in Hyderabad, tapping into India's growing tech ecosystem. Today, her company employs 30 people and is attracting global investment. "In the US, I was just another engineer," she explains. "Here, I feel like I'm building something that matters." Sarah, a yoga teacher from California, came to Rishikesh for a short training course. That was 6 years ago. Today, she runs her own wellness center, blending Indian traditions with Western teaching styles. She says India offered her something the US never could, a chance to immerse fully in a culture that aligns with her values. "It's not about money here," she says, "it's about meaning." Finally, meet the Patel family, who lived in New Jersey for over 2 decades before deciding to return to India with their 2 American-born children. For them, it was partly about reconnecting with extended family, and partly about giving their kids a bilingual, multicultural upbringing. Americans are coming to India, and it's not just for a vacation or a short assignment. They're coming to build lives. They're coming to retire. They're coming to work remotely. They're coming to study. They're coming to invest. They're coming to have babies. Americans are no longer coming to India. They're going home. Home to a country that embraces them, welcomes them, celebrates their diversity, and gives them a sense of belonging. But don't get me wrong, it's not all sunshine and roses. Moving to India isn't a fairy tale. There are challenges, of course. The sensory intensity, the social norms, the infrastructure, the visa process, the healthcare, the safety, the constant change. These are all issues that Americans grapple with when they move to India. So how does this migration affect India? Well, first and foremost, it's an economic boon. Americans bring in foreign currency and they spend it freely. They're not just tourists. They're contributing to the local economy. But there are concerns about gentrification and cultural appropriation. The fact is, India is changing. It's attracting people from all over the world, not just Americans. And that's a good thing. India is becoming a hub for international students, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, and retirees. India is becoming the land of opportunity, the land of hope, the land of dreams. It's a place where people from all over the world are coming to make their mark, to live their best life. And that, my friends, is a big deal.